All right, this is a yucca, one of the yucca species. This is a yucca genus, and this is rupicola is a species of this. It's called twist leaf yucca, and this plant is amazing. I love yucca. It's one of my, it's kind of almost, I feel like yucca is sort of my spirit plant. Yucca is a plant that gives us so many things. It gives us survival, it gives us fire, it gives us cordage, it gives us medicine, it gives us hygiene. And so I could talk for probably an hour about this plant, about some of the other things besides just the medicine, the food that we get from it, and the way we can use it for cordage, and the way we can use it for, you know, I mean, even down to the point that you could use it for a bowstring, for making bowstring if you want to have done that, and it's very, very strong cordage. But the part that I want to talk about here really, since this is a medicinal plant walk, is to talk about the root. The root is what gives us our medicine. Now, the medicine can be a couple of different things. It can be the hygiene that we get from the saponins themselves, if we want to use them as a surfactant to break up the water, tension of water to be able to give us a soap. It used to be used as a shampoo back in the early 1900s, and a lot of cultures still use it. In America here, a lot of native cultures use it as a shampoo. It's an amazing soap. It leaves everything smelling really clean. It gives a little bit of a white, sort of a white surface powder sort of to it when you're finished, but it's wonderful. I love the smell of it, and I love using it as a soap myself. In the field, that makes a great hygiene, something for hygiene. Now, some of the same qualities, and they give us that surfactant and that, the saponins that give us that soapy type of quality, are also really strong and very good anti-inflammatories. So I use it in a lot of anti-inflammatory type mixes, formulas. Now, it's not a long-term herb, right? It's one that you want to use no more than maybe 3, 4, max maybe 6 weeks. I usually say 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and then stop using it for the same amount of time. Saponins, one of the things that can happen with the saponins is that they can start to block the uptake of a lot of different micronutrients in our gut as well. So that's something to be careful with for long-term use. But for short-term use, using it on and off, where you're maybe doing some sort of a biphasic or triphasic sort of formula protocol, where you're using this for a couple of weeks and then using something else for a couple of weeks, that's a much more effective way to deal with something like chronic inflammation anyway. Now, of course, we're dealing with chronic inflammation, we're trying to get to the source of it, but this is one of those plants that helps us with the symptoms, the symptomology, enough to be able to give the person comfort and give them a lot of compliance. So you get a formula together to where they've been dealing with lupus, or they've been dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, or they're dealing with some sort of an auto-inflammatory situation, and you give it to them, and suddenly they're feeling better. Guess what? You now have a believer. You now have somebody who's willing to start to do the things that you need to do to get at them, or the source and the cause of that autoinflammation, and try to work with that too. So it's very useful in that way. And externally, it shouldn't technically work externally, but it does. It works externally as an anti-inflammatory as well. So nobody really knows that. You can read different theories on what the mechanism of action is, but honestly, it's, in my opinion, like most plants, we don't really know. We're taking kind of a stab in the dark at a lot of things. Most that we can go on, that I think is the most consistently for any plant, is going to be our empirical values. What actually happens when we use this plant across 100 people, and 80 of them react in a certain way. We can say that's really good empiric values. So the part of the plant that you want here is the root, but not just the root bark. The bark of the root is where we're going to get a lot of these saponins. This is also a little bit of a blood thinner. It's a good natural blood thinner. It's great for heart, so it's a useful plant short term for something like atherosclerosis and heart condition type stuff. On the same token, you should probably be careful if you're giving this to somebody who's on a lot of blood thinners. It's again, short term, maybe not such a big deal, but long term, I would be very concerned with giving somebody a lot of this, and especially if blood thinners are high dosages of warfarin or certain different types of blood thinners, it might have an effect. I don't know that there's any recorded instance of that at all. It's just something to be concerned with and cautious with anytime you're giving a plant with a certain effect, and it's with somebody that's taking a pharmaceutical for the same effect. You always have to be careful, in my opinion, on that. Primarily autoinflammation, and even musculoskeletal inflammation externally, and as a hygiene. And then remember, we're using the bark of the root as well as the root to get a lot of these constituents out of it. Something, if we needed it in the field, for instance, as our aspirin, for somebody who was having heart conditions and having chest pains, and we needed it, I would consider using that as an acute care herb as well.